Hi, Tina Peters here.
See, today they go after you if you're investigating that sort of thing.
Hi, and happy Monday. Welcome to the Truth Matters Tina Peters show for this week. Let me just highlight that. Apollo, can we start again? Is this live? Okay. All right. Hey, I apologize about that. This is the Truth Matters with Tina Peters, and we are thrilled that you're here. So I was right about it being Monday. I'm like, gosh, is this Monday or are we taping this for Tuesday? So apologize about that. Got a lot to talk about today. All great things. Our Tina's in our prayers, in our thoughts. I'm honored to be here, to be with you and to share the latest on Tina's story as well as what's going on in the nation today. Again, I'm Joe Hoft. I'm with Contributor at the Gateway Pundit, had been for years. Coming up, I just realized, coming up on 10 years when I started writing for the Gateway Pundit while I was in Hong Kong. Now I'm back in the States. And you know what? If you are a truth teller in this day and age, you are still targeted. And thank the Lord Jesus for President Trump and the good people of America for putting him there and realizing that we are under a communist attack. It's really hit me on a soul level now. This is a communist attack. This is exactly what the communists did back 100 years ago in Russia. My understanding is if you study Russian history and Lenin, what they did is they stole an election and then they stole the next one. And by about the fourth or fifth election, nobody's voting anymore because they know it's all stolen. And if you say anything, then you're going to be punished, killed, driven off your farm, all sorts of things. Just nasty evil is behind it. They become authoritarian, and which they are. Joe Biden was probably the biggest monster in U.S. history, even though he didn't. Can we blame it on Joe? We're finding out via his auto pen that everything that was signed during his presidency was signed with this auto pen. So as if anybody didn't know it. I mean, like now we're kind of find out that Biden was senile. He was senile in 2020. That was one of our biggest arguments against this clown getting 81 million votes. The guy couldn't get out of his basement. He'd go to these events. There'd be like 12 circles on the floor. There wouldn't even be full. There'd be media people in them. Nobody was there. They didn't want people around him because he's a clown show. He was senile, lost his brain a long time ago. Wasn't a very big brain. And so you lose a little bit of that, you've lost a lot. And that was Joe Biden. And he was a monster. And the monsters behind the scenes just started destroying this country. There's no other way. It's not that they were insane. This was very evil manipulation of the United States. That's, it comes down to this. I read this Christian book years ago, and it was about wisdom, and it says wisdom from the heart. And it went on and on to say in the Bible, there's wisdom of the heart, and there's wisdom of the heart, meaning that's the true wisdom, and that's biblical. And so you can rationalize anything. You can rationalize throwing Jews into furnaces and burning them, gassing them to death. You can do all sorts of stuff rationally, but it's morally is where it's at, and that's in the heart. And so these monsters, they're just thinking rationally. They just want us out of the way, and they're doing everything they could, tried to destroy this country. President Trump, as we all know, has got a heck of a job to address all this, and we've got we're going to be really busy trying to fix all this. I heard Scott Bessant on CNBC. He's brilliant. Trump's brought in the right people. He's got Elon Musk. Elon's got a big target on him now, and for helping us all out. Some guys on the right went after him, Bannon and others. I thought, what are you doing? This guy's great. Why would you do that? He's been helping us, and we're seeing the truth. And this is the essence of being a truth teller. People of integrity expect to be right or expect to be believed, and when they're not, they let time prove them right. And that's where we're at. And so we've got incredible guests today to join us. We're going to start off with our guest, and we'll jump in later. with some more information. But I just had the opportunity to meet this guy last week again, only for the second time, although I've talked to him a number of times over the past few years. He is a truth teller. He's a brave man and a very intelligent man. I learned that talking to him the other night, as I have in the past. He's just brilliant, and he's got a strategy in saving this country, and he's been working it, and just really become a fan of this man, and deep admiration as well. So without further ado, let me introduce to you Greg Stenstrom. Greg, welcome to The Truth Matters with Tina Peters.
Thank you for having me, Joe. It was a pleasure having dinner with you the other night. And I apologize, I'm in the car, not in the studio, but I ran over on an appointment and my wife is driving, so
Oh,
we're safe.
well, I don't know. Your wife's driving. Can we say that or no? I'm just joking.
She's much safer driver than me, trust me.
All right. That's great. Well, I'm glad you're with us. Thanks for being here. Lots going on, Greg. Why don't you, before we get really going into the current events, why don't you tell the people that are listening a bit about yourself in case they haven't, in case they may not know who you are or how you got here, but would really appreciate you sharing a few minutes. Tell us a bit of your background.
Sure. I'm a former U.S. Naval officer, a career U.S. Naval officer. Went to Naval Academy, and I was a surface warfare officer, Navy diver, and I was executive officer of Special Warfare Team and a commanding officer, explosive outload team near the end of my career. And in my civilian career, I'm an information security specialist, fraud expert, and just been doing that for about 20 years. Worked for our government, both federal, state, and municipal government. Recovered over $2 billion in funds that were stolen from the public trust. With multiple public.
Let's think. We're kind of, Greg. For some reason, I lost your audio. Is your audio? Did you hit your audio? No, I can't hear you. Yeah. Okay, let's do that. Meantime, I'll kind of share some events on what's going on this coming up here. I don't know, Apollo, if you can pull up this event coming up in St. Louis here in a month. Maybe we can talk about that. United Sovereign Americans, which is Marley Hornick and Harry Hari and others, have put together an event, and it's coming up next month, early next month, in the St. Louis area. It's going to be in St. Charles County. So St. Charles, and they've got an event going on there, and they've got two great guest note speakers. One of them happens to be Ann Vandersteel. The other one is me. So there's information out at joehoft.com. There's also information United Sovereign Americans. They go by USA. I've got a link on the site at Joe Hoft. You can get tickets. There's still tickets available, and would be great to see you and meet you in St. Louis, St. Charles. So, anyways, all the information's there. Hope to put on a great show. Should be a great time, and some real super experts there as well. So honored to be part of that. We've got Greg back, so let's Greg, let's continue. You were, telling us a little bit about your history. We heard that, then all of a sudden it went silent. I guess the deep state thought, no, we can't be pushing this guy anymore. So, what more can you tell us after that?
Well, it was because of my background in the military and as a civilian, as a fraud expert and a security expert. Leah Hoops contacted me in 2020 to assist her in looking at the election of November 2020. We observed massive fraud, wrote a book called The Parallel Election, Blueprint for Deception, laid out all the fraud. We collected evidence of massive election fraud. We've been to court multiple times now. We were co-defendants with President Trump, Rudy Giuliani, amongst others, Newsmax. And what's unique about us is we actually won our case using the truth as the complete defense. We entered tens of thousands of pages, videos, audios of election officials admitting to election fraud. And we're continuing to fight today. We have cases throughout the country, U.S. Supreme Court case in motion, And we've continued to press fraud in 2020, 2022, 2023, and 2024. So that's how we got involved.
By the way, since we're on the topic, where can people go see your book, buy your book, and support you before we forget that?
The best place for the book is parallelelection.com, parallelelection.com. There's a 28-minute video there if you're not a reader, but the book is in large print, and it's available there to buy. You can also buy it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all the usual places. And then I can maintain a presence on patriot.online, www.patriot.online, and then you just put in at Gregory Stenstrom or put a search in, and you'll find me there. You'll find all our cases there. You'll find a lot of videos as well.
Wow, fantastic. So you guys have done an incredible job standing up to the deep state. You say truth was your defense. Can you share a bit about maybe a couple of those cases that you've recently won?
Sure. We appeared before the Pennsylvania Senate Special Committee right after the 2020 election, days after the election. And I had already submitted a 26-page disclosure to U.S. Attorney Bill McSwain. We found out later it went through the entire DOJ, but we described how they used mail-in ballots, how they used tabulation servers, CBRs, and V cards, they call them, to steal the election. But in a nutshell, one of the things that people remember best is the night of the election, they counted 130,000 mail-in ballots, which were almost all for Joe Biden. And then a couple of days later, we had to fight our way into a back room, and we found 70,000 unopened mail-in ballots, which were the actual ballots. So the fraud has changed over a period of years, but I think when people hear of cast vote records, CBRs, mail-in ballot fraud, electronic fraud, database trailing, all the things we talked about the other night, we disclosed those all the way back in 2020. And the big evidence that we have is William Barr, then U.S. Attorney General, Governor Josh Shapiro, who was then the Pennsylvania Attorney General, and the district attorney here, all obstructed and blocked investigations, and they knew that there was massive fraud. We have that evidence, and we've been prosecuting them over the last 4 years. Coming to a head now.
Oh, is it? So what's going on right now?
Well, we've been submitting criminal disclosures all along the past 4 years. We've been submitting criminal disclosures to the Department of Justice, to the FBI, the House Judiciary Committee, to the Congress, to the House Oversight Committee, the Senate. So what we did over the past 4 years is we've documented not only the election fraud, but we have a large number of other whistleblowers who were senior officers in the government over the last 8 years who have been submitting whistleblower disclosures. So we've documented the fraud perpetrated on our government by bad actors. I'll say that. I don't know how long the show is today. So we have documented all that fraud. The DOJ is in possession of it. It's in the National Archive. It's in all the courts. We filed all this paperwork. It's just taken some time. I said back in 2020, though, just to be clear, in 2020, people asked me, well, how long will this take? And I said, because I had been involved in other fraud investigations, they said, it'll take 3 to 7 years. It's not going to happen overnight. We weren't trying to overturn any elections. We were just trying to demonstrate and expose the election fraud that's been perpetrated throughout the country. Our elections are stolen. In fact, our elections right now are pretty much complete fugazis. And I can say that with great veracity. It's coming out more and more. It's come out, you've obviously written about it. It's been on your shows. And
Okay. Thanks, Greg. Something happened there again. I guess I'll have Paulo reconnect with you. All of a sudden, I lost you again. Good, Greg? Yeah, sorry. So kind of a tough connection there with Greg. We're going to work on that. But Greg has done incredible work. I talked to him the other day. He and Leah Hoops, he mentioned being in front of that Senate committee or group in Pennsylvania. That group was I believe that was the presentation with Rudy Giuliani. If you recall, after the election, Rudy Giuliani went to Arizona, Pennsylvania. He went to Georgia. He went to Wisconsin, and he presented all sorts of information. And in Pennsylvania, I believe it was in Gettysburg, and that's where I remember first seeing Greg and Leah. A tweet went out saying, "Look at this." I don't think I watched the whole program because I was so busy myself just trying to write and consolidate and think through what we were seeing and report on this as in a sense from utilizing my background, which was in audit and finance over years. And so anyways, that was my effort. And I saw that and I'm like, holy smokes. I remember I think Jim shared that with me. He said, look at this. These guys in Pennsylvania, talking to Rudy, shared that they had found a number or seen somebody carrying around like a bag of these flash drives. And or they said these flash drives were missing. And they were swearing under oath in front of Rudy about these flash drives, V drives, some people call them, that were missing in the election, or that were handled like they were candy bars or something. There was no. I think that's maybe one of the biggest things about our election process. The left treats ballots like they are just a candy bar, something like that. No big deal. There's no value behind it, and that's wrong. Ballots are very important. They should be treated like money's treated in a bank. And I used to audit banks and have audited banks and have audited banks after robberies, and I have seen how there's certain procedures that are done in banks. Pretty much all the cash is handled under what's called dual control, and in dual control that means two people are always there to sign off on any counting of money, when you count a drawer, etc. All of this is done under dual control. The theory is two people aren't going to cheat. Sometimes it does happen. Collusion's really hard to deal with when there's more than one person involved in a crime. That's difficult, but dual control helps you in situations where you have valuable assets, like in a bank or ballots in an election, and that's how you protect these things and protect our elections. What we've seen with the mail-in ballot process since 2020 is just a free-for-all. Like he said, a Fugazi. The ballots are just thrown all. You see these videos of these centers, whether in 2020 or in 2024, ballots all over the place, stacks of ballots. Recently in Orange County, California, we have a video of this lady shoving ballots through 3 times. Big stack of ballots, about that thick. I don't know how many hundreds of ballots that would be. Shoved them through 3 times. And so we were told that, oh, don't you worry, only the last time counted, and that wasn't shoved through 3 times, but we don't know because we can't see the information that supports it. We were told, oh, we looked at the underlying information, it's fine. Of course, there's no transparency. So whether it be in elections or whether it be in banking, transparency is absolutely key. Whether it be in finance, whether it be in audit in the corporate world, everything has to be transparent. I'm not going to sign off on, nor ever did I as an auditor sign off on something where I didn't have full transparency. I am not going to sign off on something and you've got a back room that's blocked off and I can't get in there. Sorry. And depending on how it impacts the entire process, I may have to not sign off on the entire process. If that activity that's done behind that closed door can be segregated and maybe perhaps the number of ballots known and set aside, then I'd set those aside and say I cannot leave an opinion on. Otherwise, I'd have to really step back and just not even offer an opinion on an entire block of business. That's what's happened in our elections. There's just all sorts of shenanigans going on. So, anyways, lots going on. We're still waiting on Greg to get set up. I think he's home now. He's off the road. Oh, maybe Paulo will work with you as far as your camera there, Greg. So, yeah, there we go. There we go, Greg. You're looking good. You're looking good. Thanks for racing to get,
Yeah, sorry.
make it to this. No problem. And hope everything's right. Thank your wife for not getting any accidents on the way home too. So thanks.
Yeah.
Anyways, where were we at, Greg? I mentioned while you were getting set up here that you mentioned this event that you went to in 2020 in Pennsylvania in front of the Senate. That was with Rudy Giuliani as well, right? I knew those as like
That
Rudy's.
that was later with Rudy.
Oh,
We
okay.
went to the Pennsylvania Special Governmental Committee on election fraud and testified there. And I think one of the big differences with our case is we had submitted the evidence of the massive election fraud, and we nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. And U.S. Attorney William McSwain, who was the U.S. Attorney for Eastern District of Pennsylvania, who I happen to have, his cell phone. I had worked with him in the past and called him directly. He took the reports quite seriously. He knew who I was by reputation, and he submitted everything to William Barr and to a guy named Richard Pilger, Donahue, all the senior officials at the DOJ. And William Barr tanked it. He absolutely knew there was massive election fraud, not only in Pennsylvania, but they were getting identical reports from key precincts or key counties. So what we found out and we wrote about in the book was that at that time it only took 20 counties in the United States to change the entire outcome of a national election. There's 3,143 counties in the United States, but it only took 20 at that time to change the outcome. And you're going to recognize the names: Delaware County, PA, Wayne County, Antrim County, Fulton County, Georgia, Maricopa County, Arizona. All of the names that we've heard for the last 4 years, those were the hotbeds. That is where they stole the national election. What they did since then is they've installed centralized counting centers throughout the country. Now, people have come to accept these in Pennsylvania and other states, but it's the method they use to cheat. What protected our country for 200 years was decentralized counting. Voting 50 people to 100 people to a precinct, voting in your neighbor's house, voting in a garage, voting at a rest home. Everyone knew each other. They knew their neighbors. Everyone voted in person. They voted the same day. We didn't use machines in a lot of cases. We just filled out paper ballots. Decentralized counting was what protected our elections for over 200 years. The centralized counting is what's killed us, and that's what we've got to get away from. And that's what you're hearing on the news now with President Trump and others saying we're going back to paper ballots, we're going back to decentralized counting. That's what's going to save our country.
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard you guys talking about that recently, and I think you're spot on with that. And you've even pointed out how the effort now from the communists that are trying to take over this country is just let's consolidate everything. Let's continue to get rid of these small precincts. Let's continue to move on to this process of mail-in ballots and machines and total fraud is what it is. Let's not audit these things the way they should be, because quite frankly, a county couldn't afford to audit these things with what would be required to really give a good opinion, solid opinion. I've worked in the corporate world. This thing that just angers me to death is the fact that they're pushing this stuff, but they're not providing the controls, processes, or even the transparency that is absolutely required. And then they want us to pretend like everything's fine. And I see these, bullshit audits that are promoted by people like the Brennan Center about, let's do these crap audits where we'll select 100 ballots here, and and they're all fine, so everything's great. And my analogy is, after doing bank audits, is, well, I wouldn't walk into a bank audit and just look at one teller's drawer and count the number of fives and agree that to her record and say everything's fine here. The vault could be empty. It wouldn't matter. And quite frankly, I think that's what's going on in our elections. The vault's been stolen, and we're counting the fives and tell her fives a drawer. It's insanity. Everything's insane about this entire process. And the left that's why they want to keep us quiet, because we know this stuff's insane.
Well, the inventor of the risk limiting audit, or the person who's attributed, and forgive me, I hope he forgives me, his name escapes me for a moment, but he's filed federal suits saying that a risk limiting audit, which he's renowned for, and helped invent and promote, what he's an expert around the country in this. He said it has been misused. There is no way to do a risk limiting audit at all for the election systems, because there's a separation, there's a break. The cast vote records and the way they collect the votes, there's a break in the chain of custody. He said once they break that chain of custody, and anything like with uses cast vote records cannot use a risk limiting audit. So the terms, the phrases they use to take control of the elections are, again, it's an illusion of choice. It's a fugazi. What they've done is they've created a black box from an audit perspective that we can't look into. We have filed lawsuit after lawsuit for the 4 years. We have run into corrupt judge after corrupt judge who were completely TDS, a lot of them. Some of them were just plain corrupt. We called them out on this. I don't know how many judges across the country, not only ourselves, but others, have submitted judicial complaints on, saying there was no standing, there was no jurisdiction, there was no evidence. Not one of our cases was heard on the merits, except for our defamation suits. And once we got to the point where we were going to trial, they discontinued and it withdrew in our favor, and they said we can't go to trial because we proved every single thing we said during the discovery. We presented our evidence and we presented it into the court record. So I want people to be clear here that this is not conjectural. This is not an unsubstantiated claim. We have substantiated proof that's in the public record. It's in the National Archives. It's in judicial records in the courts throughout Pennsylvania, Philadelphia Common Pleas Court, the Commonwealth Court, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. We have submitted evidence of massive election fraud, which was accepted by the courts, and they have not heard the merits of any of these cases. They were obstructed by our judicial system. That will hopefully change with Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, new Solicitor General. There's a new posse that's coming to town, and they are going to break that black box apart and let us look into it. And that's what's going to fix our elections. We've really got to pay attention to 2026, Joe, because otherwise President Trump's going to have a 2-year presidency.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're going to steal it. This is what you're saying. They're just going to steal it.
They're planning on it now.
Well, they did it in 2024. If Trump wasn't so huge, all the lower, races, even down to the state, the school board elections, I believe, were tainted in many places.
Well, the case in Nevada right now with Andy Thompson, Pastor Andy Thompson. I know Mark Cook. He's been looking at it and working on it. Ed Solomon, who's a pretty well-known name, mathematician, very well regarded and renowned mathematician in the United States. They had, I believe it was over 60,000 ballots, mail-in ballots, counted after the election that they found. And 97% of them didn't include a vote for the president. They were all for the undercard. We have similar things that we talked about in California. And what we're finding across the country now, here in Delaware County, in Connecticut, Georgia, Nevada, Utah, California, is we figured out what they do with the database manipulation. Okay, they call it trailing databases. What they did is they committed fraud, massive fraud, cast votes, and then after the election, they've been deleting the evidence. They've been removing and cleansing the databases so that we wouldn't have visibility into the into the fraud. But we've got a lot of good people working for us, Joe. Forensic accountants like yourself. We have cyber warfare and cyber experts. We have database experts. We have financial experts, and they have pressed forward for the last 4 years. And this is going to come to a head, I think, by at least the general election for this year, because they're trying to redistrict now and prepare for 2026. But I think we're going to make a major progress in the next 6 months. And I think by 2026, we'll be cleaning up the elections so that we can have honest elections in November 2026.
Let's pray for that for sure. Everybody out there listening, pray for Tina Peters. Pray for real elections in 2026. But you mentioned Kash Patel. I'm sitting here thinking, my God, the thought crossed my mind as you're mentioning this. That guy's got so much stuff on his plate right now. Just trying to organize all the stuff that needs to be fixed must be a monster of a job. Let alone prioritize all this stuff, because it's an absolute mess in every area. How do we bring this stuff to his attention?
Well, I think that they're very well aware of it. I think Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, or at least they've been briefed. I think, yourself, people watching this show, we do have people that are trying to get us directly to Pam Bondi and Kash Patel. They are very busy, but I wrote an article, and it was in the Intelligencer.today, and it was titled "The Council: Who is Running the United States of America." And we talked about the SIGI, or the council. The SIGI is the Council for the Inspectors General for Integrity and Efficiency, SIGI, CIGIE. It's been mentioned by Congressman Clay Higgins. And one of the things that article talked about was who's doing this? Who are the actual bad actors? We had the 51 intelligence heads that were involved, the director of the FBI, the director of the U.S. Attorney General, the Inspector General, Michael Horowitz, who sits at the head of the table. And what's very interesting is we identified the money mechanisms, how they're funding it. And one of the first things President Trump did, and Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, and Elon Musk with Doge, is they cut off all the funding. Very first place they went was USAID, which does the work that's too dirty for the CIA. I understand that they got rid of, I think 86% of the money has been clawed back as of today. And that was what was financing a large part of the enemies of the United States, including election fraud. So cut the money off first. President Trump, it wasn't a mistake or that he appointed himself chair of the Kennedy Performing Arts Center. That is a huge slush fund for fraud. And he put himself as the chair. So things that they did that were very strategic were people complained about him removing specific DOJ officials, certain inspector generals, 22 of them, I believe. They were people that were enemies of our country, specific enemies of our country, who we name many of them in our lawsuits. It's named in that article, the council. And the way we get our country back is President Trump is first fulfilling his campaign promises. I think that's what's important to the American people. He's fulfilling his campaign promises. He's taking care of the slush fund that is Ukraine. And we saw how he handled Zelensky, which was expertly. They're cutting off all the money. And this isn't just Democrats, although it's mostly Democrats. Most of them are communists. I wouldn't even call them Democrats, but some Republicans too. Cut the money. Identify the bad actors. We're going to get to litigation. Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, we're going to get to the charges. That's going to take a little while longer, but I think we're on the way. So how we do this is, this show, Joe, you and I need to communicate. We talked about the number of people that we know and shared acquaintances, shared patriots, and we just need to bring these things to the attention of Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, and work together. We had Linda Sinkowitz from Connecticut was there with us. Marley, Marley Hornick from United Sovereign. Harry, there's different people from these different organizations that have been working, I wouldn't say completely independently. We've been aware of each other, but now we're starting to come together, compare notes, and we're going to leverage all the experience and the things that we've all learned together to bring this to closure.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's what we're working for. We just want our country back. And
Mhm.
quite frankly, as you know and I know, it's like if you don't have elections, you don't have a country. It's just like 100 years ago with Lenin when he took over Russia. He didn't shoot everybody in the head. He stole the election,
Right.
and then he did it again. And then he started shooting people in the head
Mhm.
because they knew they couldn't do anything. And that's quite frankly, basically where we were at under Joe Biden. They started throwing innocent men and women in prison. Those January Sixers. They killed 4 Trump supporters. Another 4 or 5 committed suicide rather than go into prison. It was horrible stuff. This horrible stuff. What they were doing while now we're finding out they were embezzling billions, if not trillions of dollars. What did they say? $1 trillion just from COVID money went overseas. We don't know where it went right now. Maybe they do. We don't know. But this is this crime spree that's been going on for years. Although I'm still not a great fan of Barack Obama, I got to tell you, I think a lot of massive corruption. Maybe it became more, to me, more open. I'm like, what is going on here? And certainly he continued that through Trump's presidency into certainly into Biden's. So a lot of stuff we got to figure. We got to figure out who was running the country the last 4 years. We don't even know
An
that
auto
auto
pen.
sign. Yeah,
An
crazy.
auto
Who
pen.
owned that? Who
Yeah.
ran that? That's the big question. Who ran that? And who ran him or her? Who ran that? It's outrageous. Yeah.
Right.
How much time you got with us, Greg? I don't want to take too
Plenty
much
of
of your
time.
time. Okay.
I think that we had such a great conversation, and it was such a wide-ranging
Yeah.
set of topics that we could talk for a while. But
Great.
I like focusing on the election fraud because I think that's
Yeah.
why people are here and the
Yeah.
mechanisms of it.
Well, let me share something with you, and I'd like to get your comments on this. So, my understanding is tomorrow in Orange County, California, maybe I've mentioned this to you. I've been looking at this county for some reason. I was fascinated with Orange County after this election. And as you know, everybody walked away and said, oh, everything's fine. And no, it's not fine. Trump won, thank God. But Orange County had a mess going on. I can tell you a brief history here, and then I'll show you this piece I put up this morning at joehoft.com. The history was I found out that they needed that they were curing ballots and that they needed help in Orange County. Somebody sent me some information, so I put it up. We shared it at the Gateway Pundit, and then President Trump retruthed it. So the first thing is a bomb on Orange County because if Trump retruths it, these guys on the other side are like, oh my. That Friday night, the day that Trump retruthed it, there was a bomb threat in Orange County. And
Mhm.
to this day, I don't know who sent the bomb threat. I don't know exactly who received it. I don't know if they've ever pressed any charges against whoever sent it. But there was a bomb threat, and that occurred on Friday night. Now they're doing counting in California for another month or so after that election, which is again insane when you start talking to people overseas in Italy and stuff, how they do elections like we used to do, just in one day, 8 hours, whatever, 10 hours, they're done. Local small precincts, just everything that you just mentioned. That's being done in Italy today. Voter ID, you got a voter roll that you're on it. You check it all, you go in, you vote, paper ballot, boom, 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 you're done that night at 10 o'clock. The whole country knows who won, and a massive population in Italy, needless to say. So, anyways, that Friday night, all of a sudden vans showed up, 2 white trucks, which reminded us all of Detroit in 2020 and how those white trucks or the vans
Mhm.
pulled up underneath the facility there. Again, no charges ever pressed there. Bill Barr blocked that. I'm pretty
You
sure
did?
there's even information on that. And so then that ignited some concern. The next day I'm writing about there's a bomb threat and white trucks show up. So that got some attention. People are like, oh no, flashback. And then what happened was, they said everything's fine, everything's fine. It was no big deal. So we requested, or somebody requested, and we were able to see this video from the facility, and it shows that night that the bomb threat occurs. So it happened. They were notified like before 5 or right around 5 o'clock They didn't get anybody out of there till like 6:30. So like for an hour, hour and a half, they let people walk around. They've just received a bomb threat and they're letting people walk around. I'm like, what's going on here? And now we can see it on video. Not only that, that's when we found this one video of this lady shoving ballots through 3 times. And we're like, what's this? And so we wrote about that, and they came back and said, "Oh no, the only one of those activities was ever processed. The for other two were not." And then they said later that I'd received some information, I believe, they're saying, "Oh, we checked it, and yeah, that's of course no transparency. They're not letting me check this stuff, but they're going to say no, nothing there." And so, in the meantime, between we got the video and that bomb threat, we started looking at the numbers. We find out of 1.8 million people in their voter rolls, they sent out 2.1 million ballots. So that's 300,000 more ballots than they have people on their voter rolls. And they come back and say, "Oh, that's because the people that got two were voted, came in person and voted on election day." So they apparently got two ballots. And I'm not so sure that that's even legal. Certainly, according to Hava, I guess we'd have to ask an expert on that, but I don't think it is. So they had 300,000 people that received two ballots, and that's in their election. And eventually, what happened was there's 6 U.S. House seats in Orange County. It's always been a red county up until they went to drop boxes and the ballot harvesting, which is illegal. They also made it so that this year was illegal to ask somebody for their ID. It's illegal, which is shocking. And then the other thing that they put in place is if you confront somebody a worker during the review, let's say the worker approves a signature that's garbage or that was typed in like people have seen, well, then you can get thrown out and even charged with a crime for interfering in the election. So that's the standards they have in Orange County now, and they ended up giving 3 of the 6 seats to Democrats after the bomb threat, after Election Day, and in total, 5 out of the 6 seats in a red county went to the Democrats. And so this is why it's a big deal. Today, I put this piece up. They're pushing this report they put in front of the grand jury out there in Orange County. They call it the grand jury report. And I just went through it and said, "What is this? This is to me, it comes across as a scam or an effort to try to validate their non-certifiable results that they certified in Orange County." Anyways, what's your thoughts on all that?
Well, I think we've had the evidence of massive election fraud for all 4 years. And the maddening thing here that you're talking about in Orange County is everything you just discussed has been documented. There's not a machine in the country that's certified in accordance with federal law. Not a one. And we learned that here in Pennsylvania first, that not a single machine is certified in accordance with federal statutes. Not a one in the country. So first of all, we've got election machines that aren't certified. The reason they were able to run multiple boxes through these machines in 2020 and since, and just started again in 2024, is because there's a software patch for Dominion, Harder to Civic, ES&S, that basically has to be installed to prevent double, triple, and quadruple counting ballots. Now, first of all, I was a software engineer, computer scientist for years. This is where, I got into my skill sets. Only an idiot would write code like that. And it's impossible for 3 separate companies all running, software to not have thought of that. Like, hey, we shouldn't double count ballots, right? I mean, we can't run them through. They have barcodes on them. They have some way to identify. So the machine companies are complicit. Harder Civic, Dominion, and hey, I'd love them to come sue me because everyone else has tried to sue me. In fact, we're going to be coming after you pretty soon. The machine companies are in on it. The election officials are in on it. The elected officials are in on it. Does anybody here really think that Nancy Pelosi, Schiff, who was the guy they threw out of Congress? He looks like the guy from the Geico commercial. They threw him out during the president's speech. Who actually thinks these malcontents, Maxine Waters, they get elected over and over again? That does not happen. It cannot happen. Adam Schiff has got to be one of the most unlikable, unelectable figures in American history for politics. Schumer, Nadler, they look like villains out of a Batman comic.
Yeah, he's the Penguin.
It is not possible that they could have been elected this many times without fraud. It is not possible that Kamala Harris, just President Trump squeaked out, 1% win over Kamala Harris. It's not possible. It defies all logic. So what you're seeing happening in California was that they had lost, President Trump, they had already lost the presidency. So they were scrambling to maintain status quo in the House. And they said, we got to keep counting here because we got to maintain status quo. Now, the things that you described earlier, we caught them 10 different ways from Sunday. We're going to go back in there, Joe. I mean, we talked about it. We're going to be going into Orange County here very soon, just the way we're going into Nevada, Utah, Connecticut. We're prosecuting cases here in Pennsylvania. The people in Georgia are doing a fabulous job. Florida's sparking up. But there are people all over the country bringing these cases and finally able to articulate them. That's the big part the public, really has a hard time is articulating how they steal. And say once they accept that, and I think 80% of the American public has, now it's a matter of targeting the people who are doing the stealing, putting them in prison, and removing the elected officials who have benefited from this. This is why they're all screaming about USAID and elections, and they're going out of their minds because we cut their money off. We cut their means of paying off elections and committing election fraud off. And now we're going through the courts and we're going to clean it up and we're going to hold people accountable now. So that's where I think the road home is. But I can't wait to get my hands on Orange County with you and the other folks that are, we're heading that way. We're coming Orange County, and we're going to hold you accountable.
Yeah, well, it's not hard to just challenge some of this. We certainly have every right to do that. We have freedom of speech, although it's we're being challenged by the left all the time, all the time, let alone social media, etc. I had a hard time getting on my Twitter account this morning. I'm like, oh, well, the deep state must not like what I'm saying or something. But it doesn't. I have been shadow banned. I have been doxxed. I have been sued. This is the kind of stuff that happens, I think, when you share the truth. And so what do? I think you just continue to move forward and share the truth. That's I love how you and Leah have won your case because truth was what you had on your side, and you used it, and that was smart. That was really, really smart. So any I guess final thoughts. We've got a couple minutes left here. I'm going to have to run here in a couple minutes because I got another show right after this. But any final thoughts? What can we look forward to? What are you guys really focused on? And anything that you need help with as well?
Absolutely. I'm going to say here, please donate. We're not sweethearts of the RNC. The grassroots organizations seldom are. So patriot.online, there's a donate button there. You can hit that. You can buy the book, Patriot, the Parallel Election at parallelelection.com. But we could really use the donations. But I think one of the big things that we need to do is what people respond to is identifying the culprits, identifying the Batman comic villains, and going after them. And I think that's where we're at now, where we're going after Josh Shapiro here in Pennsylvania. He's a criminal. I can say that. We have the proof he's a criminal. Going after William Barr, which is a shocker to most people. It was a shock to me, and it was a disappointment to me to find out what a corrupt, craven man he really is. We're going to go after Inspector General Horowitz, and we're going to hold him accountable. We're going to go after Christopher Wray and hold him accountable for not only the election fraud, but what I believe He's got a lot of explaining to do on multiple assassination attempts that had his fingerprints all over them. So that investigation is yet to be done. So I think what has to happen is for the American people to see President Trump's promises kept. He's done an amazing job. What do we have? 48, I think. We're in the high 40s here. I think the first 100 days of this presidency are going to be better than the last 100 years. But one of the things he needs to focus on is holding people accountable. People want to see these people in cuffs. They want to see Adam Schiff in cuffs, and he should be in cuffs for treason. They should be putting Nancy Pelosi in cuffs. They should be putting these election officials who stole elections in cuffs. There's a few judges I'd like to have them look into. So I think once they start isolating, containing, and going after the people that persecuted us, Joe, Steve Bannon, Peter Navarro, Roger Stone, Paul Manafort, General Flynn. I mean, I can go down the list of the people that they went after. Tim Jordan. I mean, I think of the people that they went after. I think it's time to turn the cards around and go after the people that tried to destroy our country. I think President Trump, that will fit into his agenda. That will fit into promises kept in the first 100 days. I think that's what we need. We need that kind of support. And President Trump will provide all the evidence that Pam Bondi and Kash Patel will ever need to do that.
Absolutely. And it's warriors like you and others that are, keeping this country alive. Thank God. And trying to make it better for those behind us. So Greg, it's an honor having you here. I could talk to you for hours. I've got to run. I got another show after this, but it's been an honor to be here with you. And on Truth Matters, we're filling in for Tina Peters. How about that? And great idea by Joe Altman and others to keep this show going in her absence, and letting her know that we're here for her. And it's really just quite an honor to do this show. So especially to bring you on as well. So
it is.
Thanks so much.
I love Tina too. Thank you very much, Joe. You have a good day.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
too.
everybody.
Thanks. Really appreciate it. Thanks so much. I'll be on again here in about 5 minutes on the Joe Hoft Show. Hopefully you can make it, and appreciate you being here. We'll catch up soon.
Hi, Tina Peters here.
See, today they go after you if you're investigating, that sort of thing.